Hi, Marlena. Hi, Cervante. Hi, Rob. Thanks for joining me. Hey, Camille. Hey, Lenny. Hi, Mike. Oh, thanks, Marlena. Um, hey, cuz. Hey. What's the word? Hey, I love and miss you more, Lenny. Good evening to you. I look so young and cute. Y'all kept me young and cute at Johnson. Thank you, Camille. I am so proud of you and your baby. I just don't even know what to say. You have you have done your thing with that baby. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm so proud of you. Hey, Courtney. Hey, Tierica. So I took a little break. I'm actually in the process of doing a 6-page paper I got that's due for class tomorrow. So, which ties into the work that I'm going to be talking about today, too. So I'm just on fire about all of this. I'm going to give it a few more seconds to see if folks join. Hey, Sheila. So I can get back to my studies and get this little paper done. Hey, Boo. DJ Boo. Thanks for joining. Hi, sister. Thanks for joining. Yay, Tierica. Thank you. Here go this fool, Ezel. What you want to know, Ezel? You ain't on here trying to find out about nothing going on. Clear my page, Ezel. Hey, Antonia. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So today's live is about the CTU strike that's happening here in Chicago. So I first want to say thank you guys for joining. I won't keep you long. I love you too, Ezel. I won't keep you guys long. I have a few things that's been on my mind. And as I stated briefly a second ago, it ties into the work that I'm doing in my PhD program. So I want to first start by saying I don't have all of the answers. I also want to say I am not a current CPS teacher, nor have I ever been a traditional CPS teacher. I've worked in charters. I've also worked in district schools outside of the state. So I have worked in traditional public schools. And I've been a teacher, a dean, principal. So I feel like I have a perspective that is worth listening to. But I also don't want to come on here and pretend like I have all the answers. Hey, Khadijah. Because I don't. But I want to give us something to think about, and I want to charge us with being able to think critically about any issue that's presented to us. And I also don't want folks to feel like because they don't have the experience that they feel like they need to have in order to have an opinion about something. We are all able to critically think, and it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or not. You should be able to take a look at the facts that's presented and form an opinion about it. And so that's really what I want to do here. So couple things. I have some notes because I could go on and on about this. I want to make sure that I stay on target. So thanks for joining. My objective. So I want this to be interactive. So if you have comments or if you have something that you want to add to the conversation, please make sure you do that. So I can acknowledge that. And then I want to lay out what I know about the contract negotiations thus far really quickly so we can be on the same page. And then share some concerns that I have, and then leave you guys with the charge. So that's the agenda. You can see my teacher coming out. Okay, so here's what I know about the contract negotiations based on what I've read. There are 6 major issues that they're going back and forth about. The first one is contract length. CTU wants a 3-year contract, whereas CPS wants a 5-year contract. Hey, Leslie, thanks for joining. The second one is pay. So CTU is pushing for a 15% increase over 3 years, whereas CPS is pushing for a 16% increase over 5 years. So that's the second issue. The third issue is around healthcare. CTU they wanted to make sure that there would be no increases in premiums, lower ER co-pays, and more options for their healthcare. Hey, Crystal, thanks for joining. I know. That's why I wore this shirt. Why you trying to case me or something? Yeah. So that was the third issue, the healthcare. So CTU is arguing for no increase in the premiums, lower ER rates, more options for their healthcare. CPS is saying that they will only give or only allow a 0.75% increase over the life of the contract. So that's less than 1% increase. But they've also committed to reducing copays for mental health and for physical therapy for teachers, which I think is amazing, because I think every teacher should be actively working to improve their mental health, especially working with the kids. So they've agreed to reduce the copays for that. The fourth issue is staffing. So CTU is arguing for one social worker for every 250 kids / every 50 SPED kids. That's students with diverse needs. And then they also want a psychologist for every 500 kids and a nurse for every 250 kids. And CPS is saying that they are pledging $400,000 to recruit, train, and hire more nurses, social workers, case managers, that's students that work with diverse learners. And they want to do this in phases, right? And so the way that I take that is, it doesn't say how many they're going to hire, but they're saying we can devote this amount of money in order to ensure that this plan can go forth. So we want more social workers, we want more nurses and all of that, but we're going to give $400,000 right now to be able to make that happen. The fifth issue is class size. Okay. So they want to cap the younger grades, kindergarten at 20, upper grades, primary grades at 24, upper grades at 28. CPS is saying that they, again, want to allocate over $10 million to support the additional staffing efforts. So they're not really specific about what that is, but what it sounds like is they're saying, hey, this is the money we're going to set aside to make sure that there are things in place to cap the class sizes. And then the last thing is prep time. So CTU wants more PD days, which means taking away some of the instructional days that students will be in class learning to have more professional development. They also want 30 minutes of extra prep time every morning. And CPS is saying that they wanted to increase principal-directed prep times across all campuses and all schools, high school and elementary, but because they heard the feedback from teachers, they took that off the table and said they would only no additional principal prep time for high school and only one principal directed prep time for elementary school. So those are the 6 issues. CTU's position as well as CPS's position. And so I've just been doing a lot of reading and researching so I can understand kind of what the issue is at hand, because what I'm trying to find out is what is taking us so long to come to some sort of agreement. So those are the 6 issues. And, I want to also say too, I am pro kid. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not against teachers. I'm not against CTU. I don't have a position one way or the other. But what I do have a position about is students not getting what they need and what they deserve. That could be currently not getting the instructional minutes that they deserve. It also could be long term, not getting the resources that they deserve. So I want to be clear in saying that. Okay. So after laying those things out, I just want to say, from my perspective, again, it's no right or wrong, is that it sounds like the mayor is trying to make good on her promises. I don't know. I'm not at the table. Right. And this is all I want people to understand, too, is like, even if you're a member of the CTU, it doesn't mean that you have the full insight about what's happening at those tables. I can tell you right now that there are some principals who are on the side of the teachers, and they are taking their thoughts and their feedback to those who are supposed to be sitting at the table, giving their thoughts and opinions, only to find out later that the feedback that they've given their reps are not being communicated at the table. So even if you are a member of CTU, you cannot 100% say that your issue is the same as what's being fought for, because you're just not at the table. If you want to assume the best, great, you can do that. But at the end of the day, we have to also acknowledge that it's possible that your interest as a CTU member and teacher could be very different than the people who are actually sitting at the table, because you just don't know. Okay. So it sounds like the mayor's trying to make good on her promises, because for every issue that has been brought up, she's tried to at least offer a plan for it. I also will say too, I don't think we're acknowledging that she has to think about many different things as she's at this table negotiating for equitable education for our kids, right? She is responsible for this entire city. Education is just one microcosm of the entire ecosystem. So while I hear teachers and saying like, give us what we want, all of it, you got it, like, it just, to me, doesn't make sense. And this is speaking from an educator's perspective. I've been a teacher before, right? Because if she does agree to give the teachers everything that they want, not saying they don't deserve it, what does that mean for the rest of us? So are we going to have an increase in our property taxes? What does that mean for the rest of the people in the community? And do we understand that her saying yes to this means she would have to say no to some other things? Now, there are lots of thoughts out there about things that she should be saying no to. I saw an article today about the $33 million budget that was passed for the polices in schools. And I'm going to tell you right now, I feel some kind of way about that. So this is not me bashing CTU. This is not me pro Lori. This is me trying to approach the situation with a critical lens in a healthy way that's non-biased. Okay, so I just want to say that there are two sides to the story. Yep, Cicely, there you go. Two sides to the story, right? And so, you know, just understand that if she says yes to everything that CPS wants right now, you better believe she's going to have to say no to a whole lot of other stuff. And we just have no understanding of what the implications of that will be. So I just wanted to say that, okay? So, my other wondering around CTU being at the table, based on the things that I've read and what the mayor has offered, I'm wondering, where is the line? Meaning, like, what is the minimum that we will accept as a CTU? And then what are some things that we're actually willing to come back to the table on at the end of the contract? So the way that I'm perceiving it is that CTU is like, no, it's all or nothing. Like, we're not going back to school until we get every single thing that we want. And I get it. Like, I don't think that, you know, the things that they're asking for would be detrimental to students at all. There are some questions around whether they're necessary, but whether they're necessary or not doesn't mean that they would be detrimental to... I know I'm talking faster. You know, the kids at Johnson always said that to me. Miss Carew, slow down. You talking too fast. The one thing my daddy taught me that I remember was like, nah, baby, you ain't talking too fast. They listening too slow. But no, I'm with you. I need to do better than that. So I'm going to try to slow down. But what are some things that we just need now? And what are some things that we can wait? Like, are we not okay with the fact that she's saying, I'm going to add more staff to schools, but I can't do it all right now. I'm going to give you this many positions now. We're going to do it at the schools who need it the most. And then we can come back and add more. Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, ideally we have these thoughts about what should happen, but how realistic are we being about it? So those are my questions. Okay. So here are my concerns. Okay. Here are my concerns. The first concern is this. CTU, by everything, the facts that I've read, CTU seems to be fighting for equality. And I'm going to do y'all a quick lesson on the difference between equality and equity. Equality is assuming that everybody, in this case, every school, needs the same thing. And we're going to fight to make sure every school has the same thing. That means every school needs a nurse, every school needs a social worker, every school needs math books, whatever. That is what equality is. Equity is fighting for every school to get what they need. So I've talked to principal friends, and they've said to me, do you understand? Actually, I read a post today on Facebook from a principal friend, CPS principal, that said, do you understand that me as a principal and my students are not going to benefit from this strike? And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. I don't understand it. She said, well, I'm a STEM school. So the first issue is that I don't need a library. a librarian. I don't even have a library in my school. So if I don't have a library in my school, why do I need a librarian? Great question. The second thing she brought up was, she said, I actually, instead of, I don't know what position, or maybe it was in place of the librarian, she said, I actually could use some sort of a STEM coach to help her teachers be better with implementing the curriculum. So equity says, hey, I'm going to give every school a discretionary position that they can do whatever it is that they want or need with it to make sure that the kids get access to what they need, as opposed to saying, I'm going to fight for every school to have a librarian. If I don't have a library, I don't need a librarian. So my second question to her was, what happens if your school already has a full-time nurse and a full-time social worker? Because some schools already have a full-time nurse and a full-time social worker. She said to me, CPS principal, that those positions will be district allocated, which means if you don't need to hire for it, that money will just sit and you won't be able to do anything with it. So if she already has a social worker and a nurse, whatever this salary she'll get for a social worker and or nurse, she can't then take that money and hire a STEM coach. Wait, what? So again, we're fighting for equality, which means we're assuming that every single school needs the same thing, which we know is just not true, because every kid doesn't need the same thing, much less a whole school of students. Versus equity. Equity says, give me what I need. Fair is not always equal. And truth be told, at some schools, we might need 2 social workers, and at some, we may need 9. So equity is doing a fair assessment of what is necessary for students to have access to a quality education, and then giving them the resources to support that. So that's my first concern, is where I feel like the missed mark with CTU is like their focus is misguided, just in my opinion. We should be fighting for what schools need, as opposed to assuming all of the schools need the same thing. Here's the thing that really is at the heart of this for me, and I might ruffle some feathers with this, but I'm gonna do my part in educating y'all like I'm being educated. So I told y'all I'm gonna end this soon, because I have a paper that's due for my doctoral program, and a part of the work that I'm doing is examining education through a critical race theory, right? Critical race theory basically examines society and cultures as it relates to race, power, race and power, basically. And so in 1980, one of the educational contributors to the space named Derek Brown came up with this term called interest convergence. And what that means is that Black people will only be accommodated, their interests will only be accommodated at the intersection between white interests and Black interests. For example, the Brown versus Board decision. Many of us were led to believe that Brown v. Board was as a result of some moral breakthrough. Oh, we want to make sure everybody has access to a quality education and all of this and all of that. When the reality was that it was really in the favor of those in positions of power to desegregate our schools in the South because of economic development. It was a barrier to economic development. Segregation was, which is why it was in the interest of white people to desegregate. So what that means is Black people ended up benefiting, if you will, and I think that's even arguable to say, like, did we actually benefit? Just Google like pros and cons of desegregation and see what you come up with. But this idea of interest conversion says you're not doing anything to help me. I might get some help as a result of you doing what you need to do to make sure that your interests and needs are met. But let's be clear, it ain't never about me, because I don't have the power. So this idea of interest convergence is leading me to think critically about this CTU strike in a way that makes me to question or ask, like, what is the real interest in CTU? And I'm not saying that, like, they don't care about kids. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, based on the lens that I have right now, currently through this doctoral work that I'm doing, is that I have to think critically about the underlying assumptions and roots around why we're doing what we're doing. It's day 9. They just canceled classes again tomorrow. It's day 9 of our kids not getting what they need. And you mean to tell me that you think it's because people care about our kids? I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm not saying they do or don't. All I'm saying is I am thinking critically about what this means for our people. So I want to share with you this other quick knowledge I have as it relates to pawns, right? Because that's what the name of this live was. In this work as a PhD student, y'all, I have been broke up. When I tell you, I've cried. I've hit my professor up like, yo, this can't be life. Because you couldn't tell me that I wasn't one of the dopest educators coming through the system. You just couldn't tell me that. I mean, not just based on my perception. You could talk to my students. They would tell you that they think I'm dope. I had some of the highest scores at my school. I never really had issues with students. I was building good relationships, like all of those things. Cicely, is there a place to have education or anything without politics? I mean, no, it's not. The system is the system. And that's where I'm going with this right now. So I've been doing a lot of reading and researching, and I learned that there are 4 different types of schools out here, right? The first type of school is a working class school. In a working class school, and this is the article that I posted, and I begged educators, teachers, parents, whoever, to read it, right? There are 4 different types of schools. One is a working class school. In a working class school, there's lots of rote behavior happening. Teachers are focusing more on policing student bodies, lots of rules, zero tolerance policies, all of that. That's a working class school. And what that does is it yields students who then learn to be a part of the working class, meaning you're being trained to work in factories. That's the first type of school. The second type of school is a middle class school. In a middle class school, you're being taught to think, but you're only being taught to think in a way that allows you to get the right answer, not to think critically about anything or solve problems, but think enough so that you can get the right answer, so that you can go to college and have a good job. That's the second type of school. The third type of school is an affluent school. In these schools, there are lots of choices, no uniforms, lots of creativity, lots of critical thinking. How do you solve problems? And these schools produce people who go out and actually run the factories, right? So we have kids that are being trained to work in the factories. We have kids that are being trained to go to college, get a good job. Then we have kids who are being trained to actually to manage or oversee the factories. And then the fourth type of school is an elite school. In an elite school, y'all would be surprised. I was so devastated when I read all the research around this. Like, you go to elite schools, there are choices. There's negotiating with kids. There is no, I said do this, that's the rule, figure it out, you're going to be in detention or suspension. It's none of that. None of that happens in elite schools. You negotiate with students in a way that you try to persuade them to do what you believe is right, so ultimately they can have access to power. So in elite schools, students are being trained to maintain their power. So me reading all this research really just messed my head up, because the whole time I've been used as a pawn. I've only had an opportunity to attend and work in and teach in working class and middle class schools. And it's very clear, if you look at the research, that these schools are designed to keep social strata in place. So if you are a working class parent and your kid goes to a working class school, your kid is probably going to grow up and continue to be a part of the working class. There is no movement. You don't go to a working class school and become a part of the elite. It just doesn't happen that way. So it's really important for us to understand. And here's the thing that I want to say about teachers, which is why I feel like their passion is being used as a pawn, because we only know what we know. When I walked into these schools and was being hella oppressive to kids, I was being oppressive to kids, enforcing dress code policies, enforcing you gonna get a demerit if you say bless you, because I said it's no talking, like all of this stuff, because I was fed and taught that, like, oh, this is structure, they needed to be successful, and because I cared about kids and wanted them to win, like, I was like, okay, what we gotta do, this is what we gotta do, we gotta tell them no talking, they can't ever talk, they gotta walk in straight lines, they gotta do all of these different things, because in my mind, I thought that I was doing what was best for kids. Whole time, the system is designed to continue to keep our kids in check. And I'm mad at myself for not even knowing, right? I didn't even know when I walked into that school to teach my kids and be oppressive to them that there were kids in other parts of the world and of the country who were being trained to like own their own businesses. I just didn't know that it was a difference. And so I was used as a pawn. And I want to say that because I'm not mad at the teachers at all in any of this. I see teachers going back and forth on Facebook arguing about why the CTU is so right and all of this stuff. And they love the kids. I know teachers love the kids. I know they do. You can't show up every day and deal with 32 kids. And I had 32 ninth graders in my class, my math class. You can't show up every day, be called out your name, and, do a whole bunch of other stuff here and there and not love what you do. It just don't make sense. So I'm not mad at teachers for advocating for CTU. What I want to encourage teachers to do is to challenge. You can be a CTU member and still challenge, ask questions. What are y'all saying at the table? Can y'all record the sessions? Like, you ain't got to make it public, but if I'm paying you my money, my union membership dues, I want to know what's actually being said at the table. And what's concerning to me is that a lot of people are saying, I'm a part of the CTU and I really don't even know what's going on. How, Sway? How you don't know what's going on and you paying these people your money? How do you even understand that that the CTU leadership is still getting paid when you not? You off work right now. Your kids not in class. You still gonna be held to the same academic expectations, getting your kids to where they need to be at the end of the year. Meanwhile, you're not getting paid and they are, and you don't know what's going on? How? So we have to do a better job of challenging, and you can challenge appropriately. Like, we all in this for the right reasons. Hopefully, that's what I'm gonna assume. But I'm also, that's my assuming the best is also not gonna stop me from asking questions. I'm just not gonna. I'm just not. And I can tell you why, because I was already used as a pawn, and now that I know better, I can do better. So the fact that I know that the system already is against us, then I have to do my part to educate everybody else to be able to challenge. You ain't got to take my side. You don't got to think I'm right. All I want you to do is to hear what I'm saying. Get on Google real quick. Pull up some stuff. Do some fact checking. Do your own research and formulate an educated opinion. That's what I want y'all to do. And I want y'all to ask questions. And I want y'all to support our kids. I want y'all to do all of that. But I don't want y'all to do it blindly. The system is not made for us. We already know that. And the fact that I have all of this research at my fingertips now, y'all, I promise y'all, and I'm going to go on record right now saying this. God just put it on my spirit. I am going to die trying for our kids. That's just how I feel. So if they pretend like, I do be going to sleep sometimes in my garage in my car, so it's possible some carbon monoxide or some situation might happen. But if I just come up like dead out of nowhere, I'm telling y'all, I'm about to rebel. Like, it's a wrap. You can't equip me with this education that I now have and not think that I'm not finna stir up some stuff. So that's what I'm trying to ignite in y'all. Like, be passionate about it. Ask questions. Challenge one another. That is really what I want y'all to think about. So when I think of pawns, I think that CPS teachers are being used as pawns. Because if you go back to the interest conversion that I talked about, like, there is some interest for white people in this. Like, let's be clear. They're not just working on our behalf. We don't have power. Why would you be doing all of this just for us? Now, we might benefit from it. We're going to get some stuff. Some schools are going to get more than what they had. But at the end of the day, and here was the other thing. Stop letting people tell y'all that we don't care about education. Do y'all know how much our people fought for us to be able to read and write and to be able to become educated? Since when this narrative that black people don't care and parents don't care, that is garbage. Stop letting people feed this to y'all. And I almost had to go in on somebody who tried to say, y'all care more about these kids not being able to play football, but what about, them having resources in their school? Let me be clear with you on this one too. If my son is a senior, anything y'all striking for right now, he will not benefit from. What he can benefit from is being on that field and getting a scholarship for his for his athletic abilities. That does not mean I don't care about his academics. That means I can care about both. So don't try to tell me that I'm caught up in this rhetoric about sports and how, kids deserve so much more. They absolutely deserve so much more. It's a both and. It's not an either or. So the piece that I feel like is really missing, I don't think the strike was the answer. I don't have all the answers, but I'm telling you, I feel like it had to be a better way because our kids are out here struggling. For me, where is the parent partnerships? I guarantee you, if it was enough charter schools out here right now, for every parent that's enrolled in a traditional CPS school to go transfer their kid out of a CPS school and put them in a charter school, I bet CTU are in that strike right now. This is just what it is. It's politics. So it goes back to what you said, Cicely, like it's politics. It is what it is. But we just have to equip ourselves with the knowledge to be able to challenge. That's all I'm saying. If parents got together and understood their power, good night. You wouldn't need a CTU. Because parents would be educated enough. And when I say educated, they are ignorant. Not ignorant meaning they can't comprehend. Ignorant meaning they don't even know. I was an educator for years and didn't understand that I was being oppressive to our kids. We have some parents out here that actually advocate for oppressive systems in schools. Because if that's all you've seen and you think it worked for you, then you think that you want the best for your kids. They don't know any better, so they're ignorant. But if parents became educated and we galvanized their voice, good night. Schools would be completely different. You wouldn't need a CTU if parents really were educated enough. So when I talk about interest conversion, I'm just like, okay, so why isn't CTO? Why aren't we engaging parents? This whole parent engagement, parent involvement, all of that. I've been in education for 13 years. Principal, teacher, dean, whatever you want to call it. I ain't never met a parent that said they ain't care about their kid or didn't want what was best for them. Never. I've come in contact with parents who were addicts, alcoholics, who were homeless. And at the end of the day, their message is still the same. Miss Carew, I want what's best for my kid. So this whole narrative that parents don't care and all of it ain't nothing about that. How do we educate them and then how do we empower them to use their voice? So that's where I'm at, y'all. I'm about to go back and look at these comments, chime in. If y'all have something to say. What we got? Let's see. Favorite teacher. Hey, Melina, one of my kids. Tierka, I used to think police and black bodies was required to teach black students until I went to college. Yes, Tierka, which is why I was able to work at Noble and thought that I was just the bomb.com. It's like we policing these black kids. I had no idea. Hence, I was used as a pawn. People know. And I ain't gonna even say my principals. I don't think my principals knew. I think we all had good intentions. But again, it wasn't until I enrolled in this PhD program. And here's another issue I have. How was I able to be a teacher walking into a space? I knew my content, but all of this context, I had no idea that I was basically perpetuating this social strata in our society by doing the exact opposite of what I wanted to do. In my mind, I'm policing, I know it's policing black kids, but I'm doing all of these things to help my kids get ahead in life. This is what I was fed. Whole time I'm being oppressive towards them to keep them in a place. Like I was devastated, y'all, when I read this research. I'm like, yo, this whole time y'all been using me to keep my people back? Like what? So education is super important and we got to figure it out. Thank you for continuing to make sure we are aware. Absolutely. Communication from CTU is different from last strike. We have reached out to people and called them on that. Absolutely call them on that because they ain't missing no check. You paying them, ain't no way I'm paying you my money. See, and this is the thing. Don't listen to me because I don't have kids and I'm not married. So that means my financial situation is a little bit probably different than y'all's. But I would have been all up on the news crossing the picket line. I would have been making a statement somehow, some way. Fire me, do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, and maybe that's why I'm not married with kids, because I just feel like I need to be in a position to die for it. That's just where I'm at, y'all. And I don't know where it came from. I'm not saying everybody should be like that, but I would have been making some noise during this strike. You ain't just finna use me as a puppet. I'm not trying to be against CTU, but I'm paying you my money and I don't know what's going on. How? And if I choose to go into a school and teach kids, you gon' think about that, y'all. They have systems where if people who are in CTU cross the picket line, they could be brought up before a judge or something like that, lose their job. Some craziness. Because I want to teach kids, the ones that we say we fighting for. I can't go into school while y'all figure it out and just do some tutoring, some small groups. I'm going to get in trouble for that? And we think this is about kids? How could it be? So I just want y'all to challenge. What else? Homeschooling. Homeschooling is cool. That's if you got the resources. At the end of the day, people are paid to teach kids. And that ain't everybody's gift. If you signed up for the job, you need to do the job. If you have access to resources to be able to homeschool, great. But everybody doesn't, so we need to figure out this educational situation. Interest and perspective and sharing. Your passion is clear. Yes, Michelle. Kids want to learn, absolutely. Sports is a resource, absolutely. GeoX, Jordan, bye. I'm Christian, not Muslim. They're being greedy, if you ask me. I don't know. I don't want to place any judgment. I don't know, because I'm not at the table. But you can't convince me that it's about the kids. Not when I could get in trouble for crossing the picket line to teach the kids that we care about. Charters have their own rules, though, so kids get put out quick. It depends. Some people said that. I've worked at charter schools before. Some, I would say, pushed kids out, and some didn't. I'll also say, too, about this. We keep talking about it's not about the money with this strike. If it's not about the money, I'm going to tell you one thing. Now, when I first started working at a charter school, I started making $50,000 when I first started at a charter school. Within 2 years, based on the results that I had, I was making $71,000. I wasn't struggling. I had cash. I didn't have to worry about my job. It wasn't a union. I was getting the money that I felt like I deserved. On top of that, we had a full-time social worker. We had a full-time nurse. We had everything that the kid needs. So people say like, oh, I work in CPS because charters don't make enough money. But if it's really not about the money, if you go to charter schools, most charter schools is going to have all of the resources that kids need because they raise money to do it. They don't just count on the funds from the government to subsidize what the kids need, because we don't get the same amount of money or funding per pupil as traditional CPS schools do. So if it really wasn't about the money on the teacher pay side, kids never not had resources at any charter school I worked at. In fact, when I was a principal, I had a surplus of $600,000 in my budget. I was like trying to figure out what to spend money on. I had a counselor, a social worker. I had everything and still had a surplus. So if it really wasn't about the money, I think people would open up the conversation more about charters. Do some charters kick kids out? Absolutely. But I know some public schools who do that too. So to play the politics game in our favor. Oh, Cicely, that was probably a good comment. I don't know what that was in relation to. Neighborhood schools are important and should be equipped with everything charter offers. I think all schools are important. And if we're saying that neighborhood schools should be equipped with everything charter offers, then I would say the reverse of that has to also be true. That the charters need to be equipped with everything that the neighborhood schools have. And that starts with equal funding. Right now, the per pupil is not the same at a charter as it is at a traditional public school. So if we want to talk about, equality in that regard, I think the money resource should be based on equality. Not every charter is better. Absolutely. I know some charters that deserve to be closed. So accountability is key. What else we got? We drank the juice. We did drink the juice. We thought we was doing what was right, and now that I know better, got to do better. We wanted better for our kids. We absolutely did. It's not that simple to thinking much more than last strike. Okay, yeah, that's all. That's the goal. Just think more, fact check, ask questions, challenge. That's the name of the game. We don't have the answers. We just trying to figure this thing out. I was penalized in charter for not making the gains that they never told me I had to make. I don't know that experience. I knew from the beginning that the charters that I was in, the goal was for kids to learn. So I can't speak. I'm sorry you had that experience. I've not had that experience. And then last comment, financially, I couldn't handle the charter and the penalties and supporting my family. Again, people have to make, whatever choices are best for them. At the end of the day, every kid should get what they need. That's my whole argument. It's not about what? It's two different things, equality and equity. It's not about equality. It's about equity, right? So if every school had access to what kids needed, we wouldn't have to play this game about charter versus traditional public school. If I'm a student and I'm at a charter school, it does take the same amount to educate me at the charter that it does at the traditional. But we don't even want to talk about the inequities there because it's all political. Why do it matter what school? The child and the parent chose what school that they wanted to go to. The money should follow the kid. If they're not happy with their neighborhood school and they choose to go to a charter school, the money should follow them. That's just natural because that's the person or the place where the child is being educated. But we don't want to have that conversation because people are at the table that have interests that are greater than our kids. If it was about kids, every school should get the same amount of money to educate the same child. But it's not about our kids because if it was, then that would have happened a long time ago. So perhaps the CTU should think about redirecting their energy. Go down to Springfield and lobby if you really care about kids. Lobby for an equitable funding model. Like, what are we talking about, y'all? It's never been about the kids. Come on, Melina. It's been about them. Took away free programs for the children. Yeah, right. It's all about design. So, yeah, y'all. I don't have much more than that. As y'all can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. And I have a paper that's due and a presentation that's due. So I'll probably be pulling an all-nighter. So I'm going to get off this thing in a second. But I'm going to give y'all a couple more seconds to leave any comments that you have that you want to share. But just as a recap, my goal to you guys is to push, challenge. Don't just accept the status quo. Just because striking was a means to solve the problem doesn't mean it had to be the means to solve it. I think if we galvanize parents, empower them, we can see some pretty powerful things happen at our schools. So challenge, push, ask questions, go right, call, do all of those things. Right. And that's why people in other, hey, fat boy, that's why people in other communities see progress more than we do. Some of the stuff that happens in these schools, I wish we would go into the lab school and tell kids what they can wear, when they could talk, how they could tie their shoe. You got to be kidding me. That'll never happen. Because the parents ain't going. That's because they are equipped with the knowledge to appropriately advocate for their kids. So our work needs to be, how do we become educated if we're parents or educators? How do we become educated? And then how do we pass that knowledge on while we're pushing to dismantle the system? That's the key, right? With this new information that we have, how are we going to make an impact? What are we going to do with it? So thank you guys so much for watching. I so appreciate y'all. All of your comments. I'm going to go back and read them individually too to make sure I didn't miss any. But thank you for joining me. Someone who really cares. I do. I care a lot. And this is my hill that I'm willing to die on. Legit. So, yeah, just keep me protected. Keep me lifted up in prayer. That's my prayer to God every day, is just keep me protected as I try to do this work. Because the truth is, folks don't want to see us be better, especially not better than them. So it's up to us to do the work to figure this thing out. I love y'all, and I mean it, and there's nothing y'all can do about it. I'm always available. Hit me up via direct message. Text me, call me if you have my info. But we're in this together. So y'all have a good night. Be blessed and be safe.